Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and get started for lack of time. I'd like to, can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay. Okay, perfect. So as a reminder, just make sure you put your name and your email address in the chat. And I'll probably say that a few times just in case we have people that come in a little bit later. The agenda today, and this meeting is being recorded, and it's also, there's a caption at the bottom. We're just going to go through, I have I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to do a welcoming, which we're doing now, a staff presentation, and then public comments, next steps, and then we'll adjourn by 8 o'clock. Depending on how many public folks come here, it's going to kind of depend on how the flow of the meeting goes, and we may modify things a little bit. But this plan has been in the works for probably 2 to 3 years. We've had a little bit of delays. We're excited to have it out for SEPA 30-day public review. The comment period ends on the 14th, which is next week. And you should all have been giving that public release information that came out in the news release that has the link to the plan on the website, as well as a link to SEPA to make comments. And then Derek's going to give an overview presentation of the plan. He'll describe some of the top high points of the plan. And then we're gonna spend a chunk of time on public comment because we want to hear from you. That's the point of doing this meeting. We want to talk less. We want to hear from the public. So, and then we'll talk about next steps briefly. And also, there's 3 ways to make comments. You can raise your hand. You can write your comments in the chat tool, and then also you can send comments in by the 14th of October to our website. We could take email comments as well to myself or Derek, and we can add those to the SEPA, whatever works for folks. And then Patricia, I think, is going to monitor the hands just in case I miss things, if I miss any of the hands that come up. So feel free to ask questions. I'll try to monitor things. So Derek, I'm going to have you go ahead and.
All right. Thank you, Lori, for getting us organized and getting us introduced to things here. So again, Derek Lowry, I manage the South Puget Sound Wildlife Area, among a couple others, and we're going to talk about the plan that has been developed. But before we get into that, it's always good to make sure everyone understands which lands we're talking about and where they're located. So these are WDFW owned and managed lands. There's a bit shy of 6,000 acres that are divided among 8 units in Mason, Pierce, Thurston, and Kitsap County. And so the units that are in Kitsap are Big Beef Creek unit and the Stavis Creek unit, as well as Lake Keeneman, which is right on the border with Pierce County as well as Mason County. In Mason County, there's the Skokomish unit and the Union River unit that's located just outside Belfair. And in Pierce County, there's a small but mighty South Puget Sound unit in Lakewood, and McNeil Island, which is the largest unit in this wildlife area. And it's also closed to public access. And then last but not least, in Thurston County is the Nisqually unit. Next, Lori. Thank you. So as Lori mentioned, it's been about 2 years that we've been working on this wildlife area plan, and both the planning team and the wildlife advisory committee, several of which were on the meeting now, have met multiple times to craft this plan. The first public meeting was held in December of 2018. I'm not sure if many of you can think back that far, but it was definitely in a different world than where we find ourselves right now. One of the delays, other than other workload, has been COVID-19 and has put a break, applied the brakes onto this plan development. We appreciate all the support and the time that both the advisory committee, planning team, and the public have had during this process. And we're finally now able to wrap this up now with this meeting and get the last bit of the comments from the public and partners and wrap up the plan. And I think Gloria will be talking about the follow-on steps in just a bit. So our advisory group is comprised of 12 members representing interest groups including Black Hills Audubon, North Mason School District, Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group, the Nisqually Beach Nature Center, Washington Waterfowl Association, Department of Corrections, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service from Billy Frank Jr., Nisqually Wildlife Refuge, neighbors, bird watchers, staff from City of Lakewood, and hunters as well. So quite a diverse group, which makes sense because this is a diverse wildlife area that covers a fair geographic space. And so the vision statement, as you see, hopefully you've read it. I will go ahead and read it. This, again, has been collaborated or through collaboration, a collective statement that we've come up with. And it states, recognizing that the wildlife area is surrounded by dense population centers, we envision the South Puget Sound Wildlife Area as a showcase for conservation through preservation while providing environmental education, improving access on public lands and ecosystems friendly and ecosystem friendly recreation, which is dependent on healthy estuaries, shorelines, prairies, wetlands, and forest habitats. It's a bit of a mouthful, but there definitely is a lot that we need to pack into as we have a vision moving forward in the future for this wildlife area. Can you go back one slide, Lori? Thank you. So the primary management focus for these units is really targeted around estuary and floodplain management and conservation, with additional forest restoration and management in some of the units, and recovery of federal and state listed species, and all that tied into recreation. So we're focusing on habitat, species, and recreation, and both access as well as conservation of those. The South Puget Sound Wildlife Area supports recreation activities like fishing, hunting, wildlife viewing, hiking, walking, some occasional running, photography, boating, and during the right time of year, swimming. And now we want to talk about a couple of success stories. We felt it was important in the plans to target and showcase some of the great work that's going on out there. And so this is not all of what we've been successful at in the last 10 or so years. The last plan was written in 2006, but this is just a snippet of some of the work. Full details you can find in section 1 of the Wildlife Area Plan. So first off, the Union River restoration and recreation. Several of the advisory committee members and staff here have participated in that restoration activity, as well as supporting and encouraging recreation. There's been substantial efforts to conserve the Union River estuary, as well as enhance recreational opportunities through trails, through education events, as well as some volunteering activities out there. And then Western pond turtle recovery has been a large focus for many years, but has continued to be successful. Emily Butler, who's on here, leads up this effort in our wildlife area unit, and is huge success. There's been some recent events and recent news articles to talk about this recovery and success. It is still a challenge. It still takes a great deal of work. The turtle population is not fully recovered. It still takes regular daily work and contribution from partners, from neighbors, as well as from all of the staff that it takes to keep that habitat going and those species, the turtles, in this case, being healthy and viable, and continue on for creating the next generation. Additional stories, we talk about the Nisqually Reach Nature Center, as well as the refuge out there and the partnership. There's been decades of effort and work into getting public out there engaged in our estuary and the habitat that's out there, learning about waterfowl, learning about the ecology of a riverine and an estuary system, and just many years of work there. Prior to the last plan, there was large effort to do some estuary restoration. So this, in recent years, it's just been continuing the education and support of that work. Also on McNeil Island, more partnership work with Department of Corrections, DSHS, as well as DNR, and several staff here on this call have spent many hours and time at McNeil Island helping with the cleanup effort, and we greatly appreciate Department of Corrections collaboration in that regard. There's a lot of shoreline cleanup effort going on. There's a lot of infrastructure on the island that need to be addressed and managed, and it's a pretty big undertaking. And for more details on that, you can find that in the wildlife area plan. And then lastly, a highlight on Big Beef Creek in-stream restoration. For many years now, there's been a focus on conserving this critical watershed, and for the protection of the riparian area, as well as in-stream work and conservation for many of the salmonid species that live there. And we greatly appreciate our partners, the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group, in their efforts to do a great deal of work in stream, providing habitat complexity and improving habitat and spawning gravels for those salmonid to recover and to thrive. All right, now to talk a bit about species. Much of this plan is around the species and the habitat they use, as well as our interaction with them. And so our planning team selected some focal species. And the South Puget Sound Wildlife Area supports federally threatened Oregon spotted frog, Chinook, chum, steelhead, bull trout, and Marlboro murrelet. Additionally, species of focus are waterfowl, harbor seals, and western pond turtles. The focal species have specific management actions listed in the plan. Those actions can be found in the goals and objectives section, with additional detail scattered throughout the main body of the plan, and we'll go in a little bit more detail of those goals and objectives here shortly. So here are just couple of nice pictures of wildlife and their habitat can be found on the South Puget Sound Wildlife Area. Next, we'll go into more detail on those goals and objectives that have been established. And those goals and objectives, again, will support the species, they'll support the habitat, and our involvement and interaction with them. So the next few slides will kind of list out the priority management activities. You can find additional detail on Table 6, page 62 of the draft plan. And, oh, you advanced one on me, Lori, sorry. There it is, thank you. So the goal here is to achieve species diversity at levels consistent with a healthy ecosystem. And so the species that we're targeting here are Oregon spotted frog, western pond turtle, and street-corn lark. And we haven't spoken much about street-corn lark yet. It is a species that occurs in Pierce, Thurston County, as well as Mason County. And some of our goals with street-corn lark is to help that population by potentially utilizing some of this wildlife area to support the enhancement or augmentation of that population. So there's a little bit of discussion of street-corn larks in the wildlife area plan. We, as mentioned about the western pond turtle, that project is really just to continue that effort and support our agency staff and other partners in reaching species recovery goals. Next, Lori. So also, along with species, here's a little bit of talk about habitat. And we want to protect and restore estuarine, nearshore, and riparian habitats. And there's a great deal of active restoration that's occurring at McNeil Island. And that is, dirt is still turning and plans are still being developed on additional restoration projects. Union River, there's a main project there that is in concept phase and looking to move that into implementation. Similar with the Skokomish River. And Big Beef, a good deal of restoration has occurred, and there's a good deal of restoration that still needs to occur. And so that's listed as an effort. And then monitoring of eelgrass and supporting that within Puget Sound and Hood Canal. Thank you, Lori. A couple of fun images that have been captured on the wildlife area units. The upper left-hand picture there is of the Skokomish unit, out in the Delta area. It's a great place to find waterfowl, very challenging to get to as you need a boat to access, but just a beautiful place out there. Center top is a picture from McNeil Island, edge of the shoreline, looking out at big old Mount Rainier. There's a Oregon spotted frog on the upper right-hand side, and that's one that we can find on the South Puget Sound unit. Similar with the deer in the lower left, is enjoying some refuge in the Lakewood area. A little bit of a surrounded by homes and roads, and our small unit there oftentimes gives them a place to hide out, as well as meet with other deer and continue supporting healthy population in that area. We have harbor seals there on McNeil Island, on Gertrude islands, another small island in Still Harbor at McNeil, and great blue heron. I think that was great blue heron was out on the Nisqually unit, if I'm correct. So also we want to focus on a few other species. This goal is about maintaining waterfowl and migratory bird management. And so a bit more on the management side of this goal, objectives around band-tailed pigeon inventory. Still a fair amount of information, species information we need to gather, and about that, the health of that population. Similarly, supporting and continuing the annual midwinter migratory bird surveys that occur helps get a picture of the state and the health of those birds. And then a bit on maintaining waterfowl habitat is conduct wetland inventories and then prioritize those wetlands for waterfowl management. Now, here are some objectives that are surrounding our interaction with these wildlife species and their habitats. And here, this is about providing recreational opportunities in the wildlife area. So this is some of the goals that have been established is to increase waterfowl hunting opportunities at the Union River unit where appropriate, as well as increase public awareness of wildlife viewing opportunities that can be found not only at the Union River unit, but at several others where public access is readily available. And then increase public outreach. That'll be some focus towards internal, as well as continuing to work with partners throughout the wildlife area. So the goal here is to provide recreational opportunities in the wildlife area, but this is more of an access-focused goal and list of objectives. And so the sites we've targeted to increase or put more attention in the next 10 years on is the Smith access point or access location on the Skokomish unit, as well as the Lake Keeneman access and the Nisqually Lures Landing. Much of what we're trying to do at that site is underway now, but is continue the development and enhance that access where possible. And then Big Beef Creek, there's much of a challenge in getting folks out to the various parcels and on the Big Beef Creek unit, but at least identifying and improving at least one site where people can get to. Next, please. So this goal is to provide recreational opportunities in the wildlife area. Again, yes, you've seen that multiple times now. Again, that's our species management, habitat management is one side, but recreation is another big part of this wildlife area. Is to provide access, to provide opportunity. And this slide here kind of addresses some challenges that we face. And one is one of the objectives to get out and assess their target shooting need and opportunities in the Big Beef Creek unit that's currently lends some challenges. And so some additional focus into looking at solutions and implementing those. Also developing strategies to address conflicts between pets and wildlife. We see that at a few sites is to really get it not only establishing that strategy, but make some efforts to improve that interaction and reduce those conflicts. Maintain fishing opportunities. There are some access challenges for fishing, but there's also a bit more that we plan to engage and increase that opportunity. And then one of the new ones that are in the works in developing not only internally for the wildlife area itself, but also with the Lakewood community and the county, Pierce County in this case, is develop trail connection between Chambers Creek Trail System and the South Puget Sound unit. Our Clover Park Rotary partners are big advocates in not only the South Puget Sound unit, but the community as a whole, and connecting people to the various public lands, and just improving and lengthening, we'll say lengthening the opportunity to engage with our natural environment. Okay. And in this goal here, we kind of shift a little bit from recreation and more into maintaining productive and positive working relationships with not only neighbors and partners, but some of our permittees or organizations that we share resources with. And one of our big goals is to create an urban wildlife center at the South Puget Sound unit, as well as hopefully at the Union River unit. And this is all about providing education to visitors and to the community, and in engaging with them by showing them hands-on real life examples of what our natural environment can provide for wildlife and how we can support that. We have also supporting the Nisqually Reach Nature Center, the Nisqually River unit. They've been long-standing partners, and we have a cooperative use agreement with the Nisqually Reach Nature Center, and there's some objectives in the plan at supporting and continuing a healthy, safe environment for the staff and for visitors at that site. And then lastly on here is to facilitate opportunities for outdoor education engagement at the Union River unit. So this kind of goes beyond just creating a center, but it's to facilitate those opportunities and increase educational opportunities there. Next, please. And here is a picture of Rotary members, as well as neighbors and concerned citizens who've come to participate in efforts to clean up and improve the South Puget Sound unit. And I just wanted to put this here as an example, that to say we can't do all of what we hope to accomplish in the wildlife area plan without our partners and volunteers and without caring neighbors. And I thank you for your support and your participation in this planning process, as well as in helping us all accomplish the goals and objectives that have been set in the plan. And also thank you for your interest and providing comments, not only in our first wave in 2018 of public input, but over the last year or so as well, as we've been developing the plan. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Lori from there. And Laura will talk about our SEPA process.
Sorry, I was muted.
There.
Anyway, so this is kind of the summary slide about the public review process, the SEPA 30-day public review. I also put the link to the website where we take comments in the chat. If you have questions, specific questions about the plan, there's Derek's email address and phone number is also in that slide. And now we're going to launch over to public comments. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we can wrap up at the end with next steps. So those two photos in that are before and after pictures of Union River restoration, which Doris could probably talk about. Big success story. So I'm seeing only a very small handful of public people, unfortunately. Anyway, so when we had our first public meeting that kind of kicked off the scoping for this, it was a dark end. It was the week after Christmas in, where was it? At the high school in Belfair, and it was Mason, I think Mason School District. Anyway, it was the week after Christmas. It was very dark. This is when we had public meetings in person, and we actually had this set up to be a public meeting in person. We were really excited and hopeful that we could do it. But we talked to our safety officer and decided we can't do it. It's too risky right now, unfortunately, but we were hoping to do that at Union River. So we have this forum, and it's the best we can do at this point, but we do miss those public meetings. But anyway, we had a low turnout at that first meeting, but we were optimistic. So there's just a handful of people there from the public. There's Faye, Daniel, Ken. I think there's 3 people. If you want to say something, introduce yourselves, or talk about what your interests, questions are, comments, go for it.
We gratefully take whatever you have.
Raise your hands or, yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, so like I said in my introduction, I've been with the process since the start. I remember that night. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you were there.
At a high school. You know.
You're muted. I think you're coming in and out. It's your connection, I think.
Can't hear. We may need to come back to. We want to hear you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes the speaker in the headset doesn't do as well as I'd like it to do. But you know, I'm in my house due to, well, most people are probably in their house right now due to COVID. You know, there's a lot of things that you know, were incorporated into this plan. I've been a huge proponent for public outreach, education, and being able to support the partners that are putting together programs, helping Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife get conservation messages out in positive, meaningful ways that engages the public and highlights the public lands and access to those public lands so they can enjoy them. They can learn from them and hopefully encourage more conservation into the future and support that kind of action. You know, that's essentially very much in line with what the center's been doing. The center's had a partnership with Department of Fish and Wildlife since 1981. We've been around the block a couple times. You know, we made it through COVID. And you know, I'm pleased to say that you know, Department of Fish and Wildlife's doing an excellent job at the Lure Beach renovation for the boat launch that's there. It's an excellent access site for kayakers, power boaters, stand-up paddle boarders. You know, not only that, but coming up this, I think Monday, Tuesday, the pit toilet at the top of the hill is going to be replaced. And many people are very, very excited about that. It's a primary need. And when the center's not open, and we haven't been open in a little while, you know, that's pretty much the only place there is. Infrastructure and access is paramount to any successful plan, and being able to get this information out and share it with the people of Washington State so they can be involved and see these places firsthand. I know there are some sites. I've talked with Derek, and he did a good presentation there, kind of highlighting there are other areas that have bigger access difficulties. And I'm glad that you're trying to work on what some of those difficulties are. So, so a lot of that was comment, really. And as far as looking at, something that, I think we could look at, and I don't know if we've mentioned it, and I don't know if it's appropriate, is, highlighting more community monitoring efforts, and how community might be able to engage with Department of Fish and Wildlife and other nonprofits to increase the level of understanding and also participation on some of those units. It's just a great way to get people involved. I know we've got some folks, I believe Faze from Audubon. We work with Audubon quite a bit. Yeah, so I don't want to eat up too much time. I could continue to talk about all these things that we're doing in Nisqually. I'm pleased that this plan's coming together, and I want to support it being passed and put into action.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Faye.
I wanted specifically to ask for clarification. In your draft on page 68, under section 7B, the evaluating recreational opportunities, there's something that says consider seasonal restrictions. And I wanted to find out what that actually means, and if that's related to closing down the trails for hunting. I know there's some blinds out there. The blinds have always been for use for hunters going towards the water, away from the land. But I just wanted to make sure that there's no plans for closing down trails and people would be hunting all over the place at Feller Wetlands in Union River unit.
I can answer that, Faye. Thank you for asking that question and looking for clarification. Yes, in the plan where we're talking about seasonal restrictions, that's going to be both for recreation and species. So make sure that we're having appropriate recreation at the time particular species are in. So that's one piece of it. The other piece that you're referring to is hunting out there. The trail system on that side of Lynch Cove are not open for public access for hunting,
Yes,
particularly waterfowl. So that will continue to be the same.
Okay. I was worried that it was going to be opened for hunters and public wouldn't be able to utilize it. So thank you for answering.
It'll maintain open to public. Right now we'll maintain the agreement for the blinds on the Feller Wetlands.
Sure.
That those be accessed by boat. When I did mention earlier about increasing opportunities for hunters or for waterfowl hunting, we will focus on other areas that are appropriate and where there will be minimal conflict with other user groups.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is there any other questions out there? I don't see any other hands. I don't see any comments in the chat.
Lori?
Yes.
On my software.
Can't hear you, John.
You muted yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So on the draft document on page 111, talking about breaching a dike at Clover wetlands. Is that the area where the culvert has been washed out?
Yes, that's where we're referencing.
Okay, so the dike and path on both sides of that washout then would be removed?
Yeah, the preliminary plans there are to reroute it. Right now, it's been detoured and it is partly on Roselle Road. And as soon as we can, we'd love to get that trail back in place, but on a place that's safer for pedestrian.
Is there any notion of putting any kind of a boardwalk out that region, or just it would just be completely gone?
There are still some alternatives that need to be explored, but maybe I can let Doris chime in and answer that.
Right, it's still in preliminary design, but the proposal includes a setback dike where the path would be, instead of on Roselle Road and the gravel pathway there, and so it would be moved backwards. And there is some consideration about putting a boardwalk back out toward the point there. It's still under discussion. I know that's a great place to go look for birds and such. So it's under discussion. It's not finalized at this point, but it is something that's being discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like Herb. Your heart has his hand up. I don't see that he's.
Yeah, I know he was muted, or we couldn't hear him before. That may still be an issue. Maybe Herb, if you can type in what you want to say.
Yeah.
We can talk about it that way, maybe.
It doesn't look like he's muted, but who knows?
Oh, okay. Maybe some audio issues.
Any other
type in the show conversations, or send any of us an email or a chat another way. We'll try to bring it up and talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, he has 2 points. One is to get the Thieler transfer going as soon as possible.
I can speak to that while we're waiting to hear what the other point is. Thank you for putting that in the chat and helping us continue to have conversations. So the Thieler wetland, as both the plan in the plan, it references this potential land acquisition. I can tell you that our real estate staff are working on that transaction and are working with North Mason School District. There are quite a number of details that take work to get through. We have other land transactions that have been underway that have kind of stepped in at times that have kind of delayed the process, but it is ongoing. There's great strides being made as we speak on that project. So yes, as soon as possible, we will get there.
Their second point is target shooting. DFW needs to work with DNR together to provide some target shooting sites on the Kitsap Peninsula and Mason County.
I can bring up the point that we're looking to address that on the Big Beef Creek unit. I might be able to lean on Brian here potentially on answering some of that as it goes off wildlife area.
Yeah. I think I'll start by saying that, and Joel might correct me if I'm wrong, is that about a year ago, our agency adopted a set of new target shooting rules for our lands. Our previous ones were somewhat vague, and we really recognized that some deficiencies in terms of safety. Those are in place now. One of the things we still need to do in our region is to go through unit by unit, place by place almost, looking at where target shooting currently occurs and evaluate based on our rules, which are based on safety standards, as to what areas are appropriate, what areas aren't. I do agree that some meshing with our efforts with DNR is very appropriate. We have talked to them. Part of the issue for us is on our wildlife areas, especially in this part of the state, they're pretty small. And a lot of times it can be hard to accomplish or accommodate something like a shooting range in places like that. DNR obviously has quite a bit more acreage, but yeah, and I do know that they actively are working on, designating target shooting areas and areas where it's not appropriate as well, just like we are.
And there was a comment that said right now DNR is not moving forward on this, and maybe with your help it can get them to get going. That's what that.
Okay. Yeah, and we can definitely get in touch with them. Let them know that we heard this. See if there isn't some way that we might be able to support their effort.
Okay. There's a question from Daniel Hull about the pier at the Lair Beach. It's in the process of being removed, and it was the only accessible fishing pier at the South Sound. I would like to make a call to have the pier rebuilt in the future as a center. Field thousands of comments from people who would like to see it rebuilt. We did improve. I think we did add an objective based on the advisory committee comments and the goals and objectives on that. Based on our discussions, I thought we added some new language for that or improved it.
Yeah, Lori, you got a good point there, and I think I failed to bring that up as part of the fishing access bullet that I mentioned earlier. That is that pier and the discussions around returning that easily accessible fishing location is wrapped up in there in the plan. And Daniel, thanks for bringing that up. It is worthwhile in having a bit of a discussion on that today. It does bring forward challenges from a species, a habitat, and a recreation standpoint that I'm sure we could all talk for quite a while on the pros and cons of rebuilding a fishing pier in that location. Welcome any thoughts you have on that, and anybody else who would like to talk about it.
And Joel added a link to the new rules for target shooting in the chat for folks to look at.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, nothing.
Just really quickly to, the reason I put in the pier piece, obviously, it is true. There's creosote pilings there. That pier was constructed in the 50s. It's been derelict for quite some time. I believe it's 8.5 years now. And, you know, there was just talk of rebuilding it. There was a lot of energy to probably put something state of the art in. Access is a huge piece. I know it's important for Department of Fish and Wildlife in finding the balance between access and habitat. Restoration and conservation is a big deal. I think there's a balance between these things, and I do know, you know, once again, firsthand from being at the site for 20 years, it was a well-used pier. It had a great value to the community, and I think, you know, when we're thinking about next steps in access and opportunities for the public, that's just something that we should keep on that burner somewhere. And if something were to be constructed, it should be constructed with the best available technologies we have to minimize the impact, but also give access to the people that could use it not just for fishing, but it has educational applications, there's science applications, there's a whole myriad of things that can go behind what that structure might be able to do. So.
Okay. Is there any other comments out there? Advisory committee members, DFW staff?
Oh, and don't forget birding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the accessibility, it really opens up to quite a number of people, and certainly what we've heard in this planning process is access, and many of our lands provide a remote access or a primitive sort of experience, and the Nisqually unit has the opportunity to, especially with the recent upgrades, to get multiple people, multiple age classes, multiple people with various capabilities, mobility-wise, out onto the water, as well as out to the shoreline, and then potentially with a pier of some type, may potentially be able to provide access to overwater, again, which provides just another level of user experience.
Looks like Joel has a question or comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer kind of a follow-up comment to Herb's question about target shooting and DNR. I know that DNR has been trying to determine if there's a statute called the Outdoor Recreation Immunity Statute, and I can't remember the RCW offhand, but basically it protects land managers from liability from people getting hurt on their lands. I think they've been looking at whether developed target shooting ranges on DNR managed lands would be covered under the immunity statute, and I think or that's part of what has been maybe a little hold up for them developing more sites. So just wanted to offer that.
Thank you, Joel. Allison, did you have a question earlier?
No, I was just trying to figure out which pier you guys were talking about in the Nisqually. But Derek said it's not the one
I'll get one posted up for you. Just give me a bit. I gotta dig into my archives here.
Yep, Lure Beach.
Yeah, Allison, it was basically attached to the nature center. while Derek's looking for a picture, I'm going to share today that I coerced him into playing host for one of my meetings that he didn't even get to attend. But it provided me the opportunity to see the finished product of his new operations center just off I-5 in Grand Mound. And it's not quite as tiny as my first impression when I walked through it when it was under construction, but pretty nice, big benefit to him. It's going to allow him to be much more efficient, get quite a few more things done.
Thank you. Yes, Brian, I failed to mention that it's located in another wildlife area on another unit that I manage, but it does have a great effect upon my capabilities and efficiencies in doing work. And so I guess that would come under a category that I did not highlight in this presentation, which gets at our facilities, our infrastructure, and improving our capacity on the wildlife area. So some of that is providing, an office to work out of and storage for equipment to do the on-the-ground work. There was also talk in there about increasing staff capacity. But yes, Brian, very good thing to bring up that maybe the members here on the Wildlife Advisory Committee and certainly the public haven't heard that my office, the wildlife area headquarters, is finished. It's in place. I am here today, right now, in it, and it's convenient.
Yeah, we still need to have a celebration we'll probably have to have 2 celebrations for both plans there someday, maybe 2022.
Yes, did an open house, welcoming, and hey, we finished up the plans, and then we'll all pull up our sleeves and get after it. So
yeah,
one day.
Yeah, so Joel wrote a thank you for advisory committee members in the chat, which is great. Is there any other comments?
Lori, I'd like to go a step further.
Okay.
Obviously, the advisory group members have put in a lot of time into developing this plan, and thank you for that. But the other thing that's really impressed me about the South Puget Sound wildlife area is the public that is pitching in as volunteers, as partners, to really help us get our work done. Kind of a shining example of that, not to minimize the efforts of anyone else, is the Clover Park Rotary that has really adopted and really helped start to change the face and really make improvements on the South Puget Sound unit in Lakewood. The Salmon Enhancement Group, don't know what we'd do without them on the Union River unit. And Derek could probably go on and on. I'm just running off of memory, but he's in this more every day. And Daniel's group does a tremendous job, big part of the community, very valuable in terms of education and outreach.
Yes, I could definitely continue to go on as well. Those groups are, given the other areas I'm covering and managing, this is definitely a partnership-heavy wildlife area, and those partners are very critical in engaging with the community and pulling everybody together to work on WDFW lands and off. At the refuge, huge partners as well there at Billy Frank Jr. You engage with people every day, and you take a brunt of the public who want to get out and see wildlife and receive education. And your partnership with Nisqually Reach is great as well and very beneficial. North Mason School District has been great partners as well with the Feller lands. Yes, I can go on. We have Department of Corrections and DNR. We have a lot of partners who are doing a great deal of work to help fish and wildlife species thrive in this area and in a very, very rich, species-rich area. So I'm with you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.
We had a question from Herb about what kind of shooting do you want to do?
I'm assuming that's referring to what type of target shooting we want to address. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just curious. There's different types of recreational target shooting, and that we have different requirements in terms of range development. So I was just curious. I'm part of a conversation with DNR, but also about DFW lands related to range development. So I'm just kind of curious. We hear more about a need for ranges on the east side, excuse me. So he just responded, I just want them to designate certain areas for target shooting. Okay. We can leave it there.
I apologize, Joel, I jumped in there. I thought that was a question from Herb. Now I get that was a question that you had for him. Glad he was able to answer that there. Herb goes on to say, not looking for a formal range, just the designated areas, and keep others out of that area for safety reasons. Thank you, Herb, for that clarification. Yes, we also want safe areas for everyone when there's shooting, hunting, and various recreational activities that go on out there.
Any other comments or questions? We can wrap up. Let's say we can go ahead and wrap up. So the next steps are, the plan is the comments will be, we'll wrap up comments on the 14th of this month, and we'll be looking at the comments and responding. We'll have there'll be an appendix at the end of the plan that will have a response to all the comments that were received through the public process. And then the plan will be revised and reviewed internally, and we're hoping that it will be sent to the director for his approval and signature by the end of the year. So that's the target right now. I think we're on pretty good. I think we can make that target. I'm pretty confident. Shouldn't be any road blockages at this point in time. But we really appreciate everyone's time. It's not raining tonight and you guys were here, so that's really nice. I appreciate all the DFW staff that came and the advisory committee folks and the public. You're part of what makes this plan successful, so we really appreciate your time and effort, and it doesn't end here. Keep in mind that the plan goes into an implementation phase, prioritization and implementation. So then Derek will have follow-up meetings with the advisory committee on implementing the plan and talking about the progress on each of the goals and objectives. So you'll still be involved with that, the advisory committee members, and probably people from the district team as well, the regional district team. Ken Brown or Dan Kaufman? Good point, Derek.
Just want to make sure everyone had an opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, this has been good. Well, we'll wrap it up and look forward. Just keep posted and we'll let you know when the plan is finalized and posted on the website, and it'll be available to folks. So.
Well, all right. I just want to say thanks for all your work. Nice to see people sometimes,
Yes.
but in person will be great. When that happens.
Well, maybe in the spring it'll be more normal and we can have some sort of celebration like we wanted to at Union and some field trips or something. So
that would be nice.
Yeah, we're all looking for getting outside.
I do think field trips would be great. Multiple gatherings. I know one of our challenges to get a lot of folks involved is it covered, a large geographic area, not necessarily always in size, but topography changes quite a bit and people are pretty separated via watersheds, or you have Hood Canal and South Sound, and so not everybody crosses those watershed boundaries to interact or work. So I envision in the future we'll probably have, when we wrap up this plan, engage with everybody at a more local level.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, have
Thank
a good
you all.
evening. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and we'll get working wrapping this up.
Yep.
Get you a new plan to look at.
Be well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff.
Very
Thank
good
you, WAC members.
process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Derek.